we now have just one team left to go over for 2023 predictions. That's the team whose logo you see on screen right now. I know, finally, predictions are going to be done today. This is your last team, and it comes out of Conference USA, of course, as we continue with their predictions. This is the Florida International Panthers, a team that sat at the bottom of Conference USA for quite some time. Used to actually be a fairly solid football program, but have not been very good as of late. Now, with Mike McIntyre here, the program has started to see some lift, but they did lose a lot of talented pieces to the transfer portal this last cycle. Can FIU, despite all of these, rise up and contend more in Conference USA, or is this going to be a team that's right back down at the bottom of the conference again this season? What's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. Welcome to my channel, previewing, predicting, analyzing all 133 teams this college football summer. Or I should say FBS level college football teams this summer. Guys, this is the last one. Thank you so much for the growth, support, and everything that this channel has seen over the past couple of months. It has just been insane to me. If you would like to keep supporting it, hey, hit the subscribe button, ring the bell. You can watch my videos during the season to get my thoughts as well. But hey, there are more ways to help me support my channel. Again, watching the videos is a huge way to do that. You can also like, comment, share, and anything else you guys are willing and able to do to help interact and support the channel. Now, let's talk about our final team in 2023. That is FIU. How do we do things around here? We do go through a roster overview, look at who the team lost, who's coming back, and who's coming in through the transfer portal and recruiting class, as well as taking a look at the 2023 Panther football schedule, and we'll give it a game-by-game preview and prediction. So without further ado, if my slide would change, there we go. FIU, let's talk about them here in 2023. Now, there is going to be a lot of lost talent in most every position grouping. They lose at least one key piece. However, there are a couple positions on this team where you're going to find some consistency from 2022 to 2023. The quarterback position is one of them. Very important to have consistency at the quarterback position. Grayson James will be coming back for this team. 1,967 yards on around 58.5% completion percentage. Did have a 1-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio, 11 touchdowns to 11 interceptions. So if he can clean that up, maybe clean that up, especially some of his decision making, hey, Grayson James could be a solid quarterback for this Panther team. Almost reached 2,000 yards last year, could easily reach 2,000 yards this season. Hayden Carlson was his backup. He did get playing time last season, 553 yards, 553 yards, my apologies, 4 touchdowns, 5 picks. But again, it is Grayson James' show to run at the quarterback position for the FIU Panthers. Let's take a look at the skill position players now as we take a look at the running back room. E.J. Wilson is going to be gone. 288 yards and 2 touchdowns for him last season. That's a fairly substantial loss. He was a pretty good player in this running back room. Pretty good production type player. And now while Lexington Joseph does come back to this team, he currently is on the injured reserve list, if you will. And to my knowledge, I don't think he's going to be ready to go to start out the season, but he also could see playing time during the season as well. So Lexington Joseph, while he's not available for the team right now, could be later on this season. He was the leading rusher for the team last year, 536 yards and 5 touchdowns last year. Keyshawn Owens and some other guys are going to have to fill some bigger roles, but you do get a transfer coming in that figures to be the feature back for most, if not all, of 2023, depending on what Lexington Joseph does. It is Shamari Lawrence. He's a transfer coming over from South Dakota. In the wide receiver room, this is where you really start to suffer some big losses, and maybe not in terms of quality, or maybe not in terms of quantity, but in terms of quality. Tyrese Chambers is a very good weapon at the wide receiver position, and he is gone. 544 yards and 4 touchdowns for him last season. So that is a pretty substantial loss. However, you do return Chris Mitchell, Jalen Bracey, and Dean Patterson, who are your 3rd, 4th, and 5th leading receivers from last season. All of them had at least 17 catches and all of them at least 250 yards of production last season. Mitchell 4 touchdowns, Bracey 2 touchdowns, Patterson sadly with no end zone touches last season. But all 3 of those guys could prove to be a very, very solid 1-2-3 for this Panthers wide receiver room. When you take a look at the tight end room, again, another quality piece leaves. Rivaldo Fairweather is a very, very good talent. 426 yards and 3 touchdowns, was the 2nd leading receiver for this team last year. However, Josiah Miemen will be coming back. So you lose almost 1,000 yards of production between Chambers and Fairweather, but you get around 1,000 yards of production back with Mitchell, Bracey, Patterson, and the tight end Miemen as well. So Again, Chambers, Fairweather, two very good players. We'll see how they change and adapt. So it's going to be interesting to watch what happens without their two stars at those respective positions. On the offensive line, Lindell Hudson, Jamari Sylvester, Julius Pierce are gone, but Phillip Houston, Jacob Peace are back, as well as Travis Burks is a transfer coming in that figures to start on the offensive line for FIU. Let's take a look at the defense now. And on the defensive line, not a whole lot of names that I could find, but pretty much everyone does come back as far as I could see. Jeremy Passmore is going to be coming back, 54 tackles, or I should say 43 tackles. Reading the wrong stat line there. 43 tackles and a sack from last season. And then Jordan Guerrad will also be coming back. He had 3 sacks a season ago. And then Lateri Kinsler is a defensive line linebacker combo type player that will also be coming back. And you do get a transfer coming over in Jack Daly. That should help give a boost to this defensive line. When you take a look at the linebacking room, okay, this is where you are going to start to see some pretty notable losses. Sean Peterson led the team in led the team in sacks last year, had 6 sacks. That was more than double, that was exactly double more than anyone else on the team. But Gathan Bernadelle, this was your leading tackler last year, 102 tackles, a sack and a half last season. 2 very solid players that'll be gone out of this linebacking room. However, you do have a guy that almost broke triple digits last year. Donovan Manuel will be coming back, 97 tackles for him last year. Alex Nobles and Reggie Peterson, some other names that you will see featured in the linebacking room for the Panthers this year. And now in the defensive back room, again, some very big substantial losses. Demetrius Hill is transferred off to Illinois, 95 tackles, a sack, and an interception last season. Andrew Vollmer and Dorian Hall are going to be some other names that leave this defensive back room as well. But again, you do lose some solid talent. You get some really good talent back. Jamal Potts and Adrian Cole both had 5 passes defended last year, both of them top 10 tacklers. Deverick Daniel will also be coming back. And then you also do get Hezekiah Masses back to this team as well, among some other names that I did not mention, as well as some transfers. JoJo Evans and Bobby Sala being the 2 most notable in my eyes. In fact, JoJo Evans may even see starting role snaps here in 2023 for the Panthers. So yes, a lot of top tier talent is gone, and I'm not super confident in what is here, I will be honest, but you do have a lot of returning pieces. For your head coach, Mike McIntyre, your offensive coordinator is David Yost, and your defensive coordinator is Jovan DeWitt, as we will take a look now at the Panther football schedule for 2023. Any game at home is going to be underlined, while any game on the road will be in italics or that slanted text. Any game you see in green is a game that I think the Panthers are easily going to be able to win. Spoiler alert, there will be none of those in this video. Any game in yellow is a back and forth 50-50 type game, but I still think the Panthers are going to be able to win, and red is a loss. And I've said this in Conference USA videos in the past. I think FIU is going to have a really tough go of it this season, and they potentially could be one of the worst teams in FBS. So I think you know where this schedule reveal is heading. But you start out your year on the road, a week 0 game against Louisiana Tech. Now you're thinking, okay, this is a pretty winnable game. Nate, why have you already flashed your prediction up here, and why is it red? Well, first off, it is a road game. Again, not easy to go on the road and win a game in college football, but Louisiana Tech are going to be, the Bulldogs are going to be a much improved team here in 2023. You got Hank Bachmeier coming in at quarterback. There is a lot of talent that returns around him in the skill position groups, mainly the running back and wide receiver room. The defense has some holes to fill, but overall, I like the talent that is with this Bulldogs program. I think they absolutely could contend for a spot in the Conference USA championship game. Louisiana Tech, I have being a pretty solid team this year. And FIU, I do not think will have much luck there with that game on the road. You do get a game here in week 1 that I think you're going to be able to beat Maine. So there is your first win of the season for the FIU Panthers. Then you've got a couple really tough non-conference games coming up. And although they're not against Power 5 opponents, they're against teams that I think are going to be pretty solid. Again, much like Louisiana Tech, I think North Texas can definitely push for a shot in their conference title game. Of course, they were a member of Conference USA. Now are a member of the American Athletic, and they're going to have one of the best rushing attacks the American Athletic is going to see this season. The defense returns a lot of key pieces as well. You are bringing in a new transfer quarterback, but I think North Texas has all the ingredients to be a really solid solid team in the American this year. That'll be a loss for the FIU Panthers. And then on the road at UConn, that's a team that returned a ton. And yes, there are some transfers leaving that team, but you got some transfers coming in to that team as well. I think UConn's going to be pretty darn good this year. I think they're going to be right around where they were last year, if not maybe even improve that record by a couple of wins. And again, they did not have Taquan Roberson last season, so really getting him in, getting him to play, I think is going to be huge. UConn will be a loss for the FIU Panthers, as will the Liberty Flames. Now, I know there's a lot of roster overturn and even coaching overturn as well, as Jamie Chadwell is coming over from the Coastal Carolina Chanticleers after a very successful run in Conway, and I think it's going to transfer over really, really well here to the Liberty Flames program. Again, there is a lot of transfers leaving and coming in to this team, but it starts out with two very solid quarterbacks that are going to be competing for that starting job. Either one of them, I think, are very solid players, solid options to go with for Jamie Chadwell's new group. And again, the offense has some really good skill position players. Defense has some solid pieces as well. Liberty's going to be one of the better teams in Conference USA, so I do have that as a loss for FIU. Then you get your bye week, so it's been a little tough sledding for this team, but you do have a lot of winnable games coming up here. First off, to start with, on the road against New Mexico State. I know I just said winnable games, but New Mexico State has got a lot of very good players on that team, specifically on the offensive end. There is a lot that comes back for that offense, and I think it's going to be too much for this Panther defense to handle, especially once you get some plays for the Aggies that end up breaking into the second level, where again FIU losing a lot of those leaders from last season. So I think that'll be a win for New Mexico State, meaning it's a loss for FIU. You get to come back home and you get to play a game against UTEP, and this is another game that I think you guys are going to drop. UTEP is going to be a very solid team this season. While they might not contend for a bowl game spot, again, that defense has left some to be desired last season, and it is losing some key pieces. Gavin Hardison is back. His wide receiver core has remained intact. There's a lot of solid talent surrounding the offense there for UTEP. Don't be surprised when the Miners break back into a bowl game this season. That's going to be another solid team at a Conference USA that's going to compete, that's going to fight. They will beat FIU off of the experience of Gavin Hardison. You got to go on the road now and play the Sam Houston State Bearcats, a new team to the FBS fray, and I do think this is going to be a loss for the Panthers here. While Sam Houston State did not have the best of seasons last year in FCS play, and they are coming into FBS with maybe not as much momentum as they thought they were going to get, I still think that Sam Houston State's going to fight, going to compete. They're going to be a pretty solid team. They got a pretty good head coach there in Casey Keeler, I believe is his name, and they do have some things to work out. The quarterback position has definitely got to get fixed. There are some pieces on defense that they're going to need to reload on. But overall, I think Sam Houston State maybe not going to be super competitive their first year in FBS, but they will be a solid team nonetheless. At home against Jacksonville State is also a loss. That's just a monster defensive line for Jacksonville State. My apologies. But the Gamecocks have a monster defensive line. There's a lot of talent on it. I think you've got a lot of talent offensively as well. If I had to pick one of those two teams, Sam Houston and Jack State, I'm going with Jack State to be the better of the two teams. I think they have more going for them. They have more momentum coming into the FBS level, and this will be a loss for FIU. On the road against Middle Tennessee, that's a loss for me as well. Even after the bye week, Middle Tennessee is returning on much too many great players on the defensive end for the Panthers offense to keep up. Of course, we all know what's going to happen in this game on the road against the Arkansas Razorbacks. Even though there are some questions, they are still much more talented than the FIU Panthers. And then at home against Western Kentucky will be a loss as well. This is an offense that's going to be really dynamic this year with Austin Reed and that wide receiver Corley. It's just going to be really tough for this Panther defense to be able to keep up. So while there are, I think, some solid pieces on this Panther team, I am just not confident in FIU this year. I got them going 1-11, potentially could be one of the worst teams the FBS has to offer this season. Now, that's not to say that FIU can exceed my ceiling, which I'm setting at 3-9. I definitely could see maybe 4-8, 5-7, while I think it's a little bit of a stretch given what's on this schedule. I do think there are some solid pieces here. I am just not too confident in what the Panthers have this season. But that's my thoughts on the Panthers, and that's my thoughts on every team in the nation. Go watch any video you want. Leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. And as always, remember to play hard but tailgate harder. Your Conference USA recap will come out later tonight. Goodbye.